In calculating NOI, does the reserve for replacements expense eliminate the need to deduct depreciation? Folks, you don't put depreciation in your NOI calculations.
It's not a real number.
It's not a real number. That's what they do for tax returns. That has nothing to do with your net operating income. So that's a good question. Glad you brought that up. Forget depreciation. You're not filling out a tax return. Do you always have to be personally liable on hard money loans? If not, what are the exceptions? The answer is no. The exceptions are hard money lenders who don't require it. There are some who don't require it, but some will, some won't. A low enough loan-to-value ratio, you might be able to persuade them not to. Some will offer it. It's non-recourse. All right, I'm going to read this. Exchange of assets example, page 47. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think you're 50% wrong here. I agree that the seller of the plane was stupid. The lost $1 million, $5 million to $4 million. However, he lost $1 million, $5 million to $4 million. I don't know what that means. I told you his plane was only worth $4 million. However, you would have made a big slip too. The land had a market value of $5 million. That the fact that you may have gotten it nearly free does not reduce its value to you. Is that true? Yeah. Sure, that's true. Absolutely true. Imagine you find a $5,000 diamond in the street. Would you give it as a tip to the waiter that night for dinner? No, but the waiter's not giving me a free airplane either. Says, check this out with any financial analysis.
We think too much.
I am a financial analyst, and I did check it out, and it passed the test. Anytime I can trade free land for a free asset and get twice the value, and get the asset for half of its value, I mean, if I want the asset, I'll do it. I can get plenty of land. I can't get a free airplane every day. Which, actually, there's no such thing as a free airplane.
That's like a free boat.
Yeah, that's like a free boat. Yeah. Page 28 in the manual, pre-screening apartments. What to look for, high cap rate. Okay. Why would a high cap rate of 11 to 15% tell you that the property has a problem? It doesn't tell me that the property has a problem. It tells me that it might have a problem or that it's got a stupid owner. Because a stupid owner wouldn't be selling it at a 15 cap, would they? I'm telling you, if I see a 12 to 15 cap, I'm certainly going to be interested in looking at the project to see why it's at a 12 to 15 cap and to see if it's a stupid owner or because it's, well, frankly, it's the only reason it can't be, because if it's at a 12 to 15 cap, this means it's making very good money, doesn't it? All that probably means is the owner's asking a lot less than what it's worth. You understand? That's what leads me to determine whether, that's what tells me I'm interested in it, because the cap rate is high. But again, a broker is not going to advertise at a 12 to 15 cap. A broker is going to ask more for it to get the cap down to market value, what the market will pay. Most brokers. Wouldn't a high cap rate reflect a strong net operating income? The answer is yes, it would. It would. So if I've got a property offered to me with a high net operating, with a high cap rate, I know I'm instantly know I've got a good deal if the numbers are correct.
LoopNet, about 90% of the listings say pro forma. In other words, it's not actual expenses or 2004 expenses income. How do you evaluate those ones that are just, projections for the next year?
Well, I went over that yesterday. A broker who's advertising a property at a low cap rate, Mike's not going to get my attention anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant. And if I pull up the project and I want the expenses on the project, I don't care what the pro forma is. I want to know what it is now. I'll create my own pro forma based on information that I can collect from the sources, such as what could the rent be? What is a fair rent for here? The first thing you have to establish is what can you rent it for? And be real about it. Everybody, when buying an apartment complex, thinks that they're going to go in and just arbitrarily raise the rents because they're special. you know, the rents on these properties average $600 a month. I know I can do better than that, so I'm just going to assume that they're $800 a month and plug in my own numbers. You can't assume that they're going to be $800 a month till you do a market analysis on what your competition around that area is rented for. So you have to have these numbers to prepare a proper pro forma. That's called part of your due diligence. In fact, we're going to talk about due diligence on page 53 right now before we start pre-screening some deals. So back to your question, if a broker is presenting me with a pro forma, I probably got a property that I'm not interested in anyway because it's too pretty. As I told you yesterday, if they're even advertising a cap rate, it's a low cap rate, and it's probably it's a suspect, not a prospect. Let's discuss the due diligence that's required prior to making an offer, and then we'll also later discuss the due diligence that's required after making an offer. Okay, right now we're going to focus on prior. When I'm making an offer on a property, there is several things that I need to know. And obviously, what I need to know changes with the type of property that I'm working on. All right, let's go through this checklist, can we? Is the asking price well below the market value as is? Now listen, I don't know how many times I got to make this point. And you know, I made it yesterday, and I made it on the tapes. And people keep coming to me with deals like vacant land. And they keep wanting to tell me, well, here's what it's going to be worth if we do all this development. It's going to be worth millions. And then I say, well, what is it worth right now? As is where? Well, I don't know. What is the lender going to make a hard money loan on? As is where is. Hello? Can we talk? You got to know what it's worth as is where is, as well as what it's worth after the development that is done. A hard money lender is going to come in and make the loan based on reality, not a number that may or may not materialize. Everybody clear on that? When somebody is bringing me land that I can buy at $20,000 an acre, I need to know that what it would appraise for right now if I had it appraised. Now, if I choose to pay $20,000 an acre, and yet I still got to borrow money from a hard money lender, do I know that if I borrow money to pay the seller on this plot of land that I cannot borrow enough to pay the $20,000? Because it's only worth $20,000. Is this getting through or not?
Yes.
If I'm paying $20,000 for a piece of property that's worth $20,000, I can't borrow $20,000. So if I'm doing a hard money loan on land, I got to be borrowing $10,000 or less to buy a piece of land worth $20,000. Capiche? Good. Then you're not going to bring me any more land and you don't know what the value is, right? You know, guys, the easiest value to get is the as-is value on the land. All you got to do is look what's going on around the area and see what the land's selling for. That's the easy thing to get. But don't forget that I got to have it. So do you. Now, based on that, the land is worth 20 grand and you're buying it for 3 grand. It's kind of an easy deal to put together. You'll borrow the 3 grand plus some more. You can take any part of that land and put a loan on any part of that land or all of that land and easily get the money to buy the land. But if you're paying 15 grand an acre, then your creative juices better get in. You better go back to the book and you better figure out how to structure it so that you can borrow enough to give the seller the down payment. By the way, if you're paying 15 grand an acre for it and it's only worth 20, are you going to borrow enough to pay the seller in cash? No. Nada, zippo, forget about it. Nobody is going to lend you 75% of the value of land. And don't let them convince you they are. They're full of crap. You're not going to borrow 75% of the value of land if you already own it. Much less if you're buying it. So Is the asking price well below market value?
Yes.
Now, if it isn't, probably paying way too much anyway. But if it isn't, you better be asking yourself, well, if I'm paying close to retail price for this land because the upside is so big, then how am I going to structure it so that I can borrow hard money to give the seller their down payment? What were our alternatives? Subordination. Seller agrees to finance. So we can subordinate their loan to a new first to get them some cash, or we can borrow money against part of their asset to come up with a down payment to buy all of their asset. You guys remember that? Okay. Now a little math would work here. If I'm paying $15,000 an acre and it's worth $20,000 an acre, obviously I got to get some free and clear acreage to be able to put a loan on to cover the down payment. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to have a hard time making that one work anyway, because it's going to take a lot of acreage to borrow enough for the down payment, because remember, the acreage you're borrowing against, in fact, you're not going to make that one work, because the acreage you're borrowing against, you got to have $15,000 an acre to pay that off. So the only way you're going to make that one work is subordination. Let me see if I believe what I just said. If I take 100 acres and I'm paying $1.5 million for it, that's $15,000 an acre. Seller wants $200,000 down, $250,000 down. That's what, 1/6. So if I take 1/6 of my 100 acres, no, it won't work. See, because I'd have to pay the seller $15,000 an acre for that 1/6, and there's not enough equity in the property. So the only way I'm going to be able to get that down payment, if I agree to pay the $15,000, is to have the seller subordinate all of their loan to my new loan to give them their down payment. That's the only way it's going to work. Now, of course, I can do all that other stuff. I can go borrow my down payment on my other assets, or I can get a partner to put up the money and give the seller a first mortgage. Do all of those things. Or I can trade some of my asset for their down payment, or I can get them to take no down payment and just collateralize it with my asset as well as theirs. But I can't borrow enough money with a hard money loan without getting them to subordinate on their property to make that thing make sense. Low-hanging fruit. I told you yesterday that raw land is the only thing that I'll let you even come close to paying retail value on, simply because of the upside. You know, pay $20,000 an acre for this property. Now I can take it and divide it into quarter-acre lots and sell it literally for $60,000, $70,000 an acre. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes.
Yes. On your example just now, if it's the subordination approach, what's the proportion that the seller be taking from you in the subordination percentage-wise of the total pie?
Doesn't work that way. You
Explain
negotiate as
how-
little cash as you can to the seller, and you borrow that much plus some and have them take back a second. There is no formula. That's the formula. Offer them as little cash, so you got to borrow as little as you can. That's it. That's as simple as that. Okay. Can you buy it without using your money? Or if you can, or if you do, can you get it back quickly? We just went through that. Your whole process as you're getting ready to make an offer is, how can I buy this property without using my money? That's the whole purpose of this boot camp. Can you borrow enough to buy and fix from a private lender? If not, can you borrow at least enough to buy it so you can get a development loan from a soft lender? All right? And again, sometimes you're going to borrow enough just to buy it. Sometimes you're going to go ahead and borrow enough to fix whatever's broke while you're borrowing it, if the particular circumstances will allow you to do so. Let's take my Boardman Crossing loan. $2 million purchase price. My guess is, I don't know, probably $4 million to make a real big dent in that development up there. If the property truly is worth $15 to $20 million developed, that shouldn't be a hard loan to get. Why don't I just go ahead and get enough money to get it done and get 1 or 2 or 3 phases done while I'm at it? I will, in fact. It's done. On the other hand, my main purpose, my real big nut that has to be cracked is what? to get it closed. See, once it's closed, there's no more pressure except to make the payment. And so it only takes $2 million to close it. But if I can borrow enough to close it and fix it, when I'm making this offer, when I'm doing this thing in my head, should I be asking myself these questions? Can I borrow enough to buy it and fix it? Or is the loan-to-value ratio, or the whatever, the lender's requirements or whatever, or the cash requirement from the seller going to prohibit me from getting enough money now? Do I have to buy it and then go for a permanent development loan? And frankly, it's a lot easier if you can just borrow the money to buy it and fix it, then go for the development loan. I won't tell you that's going to happen every single time. Will the seller-owner finance part or all? When it comes to land, again, if they don't, it better be dirt cheap or I'm not going to buy it. I mean, I tell you, I'm not even paying 50% of the value of land unless the seller will finance it. I just don't want to. Do you clearly see your exit strategy? And is your offering setting it up? In other words, is your exit in mind before you go structuring the offer? Do you have step 1, 2, 3, and 4 platted out, or are you just hell-bent on getting it bought and you'll figure out the rest later? Are you dealing with realistic numbers, or are you in la-la land? Can you make good money if it doesn't work out perfectly? These are the questions you should be asking yourself. Can you get all the financial information on current and projected income, expenses, and debt? Now, what if you can't? If you can't, does that mean it's a dead deal? No. But it does mean you better be more conservative with your numbers, doesn't it? If you can't get the numbers from the seller, you'd be more conservative with your numbers. By the way, a lender that I just had lunch with said that we should add a resume to our list of things that we want to send to the lender. Just might want to make a note. Who are you? How long have you been released from jail? All right, here's some questions for raw land in addition to the above. What's the highest and best use? The first question I'm going to ask. Well, I got this big piece of land. Okay, first question I ask is there any commercial properties around it? Is there any development around it? What's going on around it? I mean, where is the nearest civilization to this land? And if this land's highest and best use is residential lots, okay, I know this. Proceed accordingly. But if this land is sitting beside or real close to commercial property, man, I want to know that. Which one's worth more? Commercial. If I can go commercial, I'm going commercial. Residential lots is what I do when the commercial's out of the question. What's in the middle? Apartments. Yeah. I can't go commercial. Okay, well, how about apartments? Well, apartments are out. Well, okay, so all that's left is a low guy on a totem pole, residential lots. Folks, there's a lot more money in developing land commercial than there is in residential lots. A lot more. As evidenced by the 2 Frisco and Forney deals you've seen. Frisco, 40 acres, $30 million. Forney, 800 acres. Bought it for, I don't know what it's worth, but a lot less per acre. Let's put it that way. Of course, as it's turned into commercial, it's going to be a lot more per acre. Right now, it's just agricultural residential land. What's the highest and best use? When you go out and look at these tracts of land, ask yourself that. What should we do with this property? And quite often it'll be a mixture, of course, especially if it's a large tract. I mean, you don't buy 3,000 acres of land and not put some residential and some commercial on it. In fact, you're literally building your own city. I mean, you have to put commercial to support the residential. And very well we'll have to donate part of it to use for public use, for them to build schools on or whatever. You know, a tract of land. That's why when you bring me these great big humongous tracts of land, you know, let's don't live in la-la land here. You ain't going to go out and develop 3,000 acres of land and just build house after house after house after house after house. You're having a major, huge impact on the community here. The infrastructure has to be in place to handle all of this stuff. People have to go to school. They have to go to the store. They have to buy the necessities of life, and they have to blend in with the rest of the community, and they have to suck up your roadways, and they have to use your sewer systems. You're having a huge impact. on the entire environment. And tracts of land that large take years to get to the end use, not months. And sometimes they won't let you do anything until you have all the pieces in place, and that includes throwing a lot of money in the pot to help build the infrastructure. Give me 100 acres. That doesn't have such a huge environmental impact. Now, did I just say I don't want 3,000 acres? No. But when I look at 3,000 acres, man, I'm allowing for a lot more time to go by as this thing gets developed. And I'm not going to make any crazy deals like, we'll buy it from you, Mr. Seller, and give you a 6-month balloon. Yeah, we're just getting warmed up good in 6 months. How close is sewer and water? That's very important. You know how important? If you're doing a residential lot development, if you don't have sewer and water, it's rare you're going to be able to put more than one house per acre. Is one house per acre the best use for land, or one house per quarter acre? One house per quarter acre. What's the difference usually? Sewer and water. Because if it's well and septic, you need a lot more property. And for obvious reasons. For one thing, you got to put the well and septic somewhere. You got to put the septic somewhere, and it's got to be 75, 100 feet away from the house. And can't do that on a little postage stamp lot. Yes, sir.
Ron, your cities and your counties have the maps for zoning and land use.
Yep.
And they also have, like in San Diego, California, they have what they call SANDAG, which is San Diego Association of Governments. And they have all the projections for schools, demographics,
Yeah.
and your planning people or the staff can tell you exactly, for instance, when you get an environmental impact statement on your property,
Yeah.
before you even look at the property, you can find out if your neighbors have had an environmental impact statement, that you can look at that. It's public record, and you don't have to pay $20,000 because you'll get some idea of those ideas. So all the planning and projection of schools, demographics, buildings, sewer and water, how long is it going to take to get water and electricity?
Yep. All that's information you can get, isn't it?
It's all from
what's the
the
point you're
city
trying
or
to make?
counties. They're all available.
Correct. Now, you would look at all that crap. I would say, Mr. Realtor, go look at all that crap and bring me back a report. Or, Mr. Engineer, go look at all that crap, bring me back a report. I don't deal in crap. And I'm telling you right now, if I had to read junk like this to make offers on properties, I'd still be a mechanic. And I'm making a point here. If you get bogged down in minutia, you're never going to get anything done. And he's right. Other stuff is readily available, but it's readily available and attainable by somebody else who does that for a living. I don't do that junk for a living. I tell people to go get me the information I need. And it costs peanuts to get that done. Peanuts to get that done. And then they bring me back that information. I got due diligence going on several different projects simultaneously around the country right now. Not one of those projects will require me ever going to anybody's courthouse or talking to anybody that has anything to do with the city government. I'd rather have a bullet behind the left ear, right there. They're working their little fannies off day in and day out, acquiring every bit of that due diligence information as fast as they can go. Every once in a while, I get on the telephone with them. That's how you become very wealthy. You wanted me to tell you to never go into anybody's courthouse to do anything, didn't you? Yeah, that's what other people do. In fact, if you're going to do all that junk, you might as well get you a pickup truck and go renovate your own houses too. What, I heard somebody's feelings up here? Okay.
Tell them to get all the construction equipment out of the yard.
Yep. Might as well buy some pressure washers and some paint machines and, load it up. And while you're at it, you might as well get you a warehouse so you can store ranges and refrigerators and newspapers.
They ran out of barns.
Yep. By the way, Home Depot is open pretty good chunk of the time. Is the land in the path of progress, or is it in the wilderness? Don't bring me any wilderness property. You know, as much as I love the wilderness, I don't want to own land in the wilderness. And if it's not in the path of progress, I don't want it. I'm not a land speculator. If I buy a piece of land, we're going to move on it immediately. We're not going to sit on it. Because land is absolutely cash flow intensive, all negative. And I want to make money. I'm not interested in buying the land so my heirs can enjoy it. The heck with them. They can fend for themselves. How much land is high and dry? That's very important. Very important. These are the questions I'm going to ask the people that I'm working with a deal on, and I expect them to go get me the answers before I make the offer. Remember, this is all before the offer is made. And it's very simple, and you're going to discover that they have most of these answers simply because you ask them. And if they don't, go back and get the answer and let me know. How much road frontage? That's important. Because the more road frontage, the quicker I can sell those tracks on that road. The less road frontage, the more roads I got to build before I sell the tracks. I want more road frontage, not less road frontage. Man, I like it when there's roads going on both 2, 3, 4 sides of the property. More road frontage, the better. Is there timber or minerals that have value? Can I sell off some of the assets to pay for part of the asset? Is an aerial map, a site plan, a plat map, a phase 1, and a survey available? Now, it would be rare when you have all that available. In fact, it's rare when you have a phase 1 available, but sometimes you get lucky. Survey, if you have it, it's probably an older one, but so what? Aerial map, site map, get them all the time. I mean, I got aerial maps and site maps. Some of them come with them, some of them don't come with them. But if they got them, I want them. And I'll tell you, an aerial photograph will go a long ways to taking a real snapshot view of this property and show you what's going on around it. All right, due diligence, anybody got any questions on that due diligence process there of what you're looking for before you make the offer? The question was something about wetland. And just for the record, guys, you can't build on wetland.
Your phrase high and dry simply means...
Buildable.
Buildable.
Buildable. Anybody who's selling a tract of land knows how much of it is wet or has a good idea how much of it is wet. And then you'll find that out. You'll get that information before you close on your due diligence. Now, here's the thing about wetland, though. Don't write it off. You can build on it, but it still has value because there's a thing called mitigation. See, the states have this rule. If you want to fill some wetland in and build on it, that's okay as long as you buy X number of acres of wetland somewhere else. And of course, you're going to have to buy more wetland than you're using of wetland. And they'll give you that formula depending on where your wetland's located. And the good news is wetland's cheap to buy. So don't just assume that I can't use this property, especially if it's very valuable property. It probably will pay to fill in the wetland as long as you have the drainage situation squared away. And that's what all your engineers take care of. They'll tell you what you need to do for drainage. And also, don't forget that there's always an idea that you can build above wetland as long as you don't screw up the drainage, where applicable. Due diligence periods. It's very simple for me. I've been held to as low as 30 days, which I do not like. But if I got me a kick-butt deal, and I think I can get it done in 30 days, and it's a maker or breaker, I may agree to do that, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to fight like the devil not to. I want 60 days due diligence minimum. Because sometimes it takes that. Incidentally, just for the record, I'm going to want an appraisal before I buy the property. I want it. I don't care if the lender wants it or not. I want it. And sometimes you can't even get an appraisal in 30 days because it's going to be an MAI appraisal. Phase 1. Property right now in Florida. We're not going to get the phase 1 study done before the due diligence period expires, but the good news is we've already got, I think it's Florida, somewhere, wherever. Maybe it's Michigan, I don't know. We've got to build into the contract that the due diligence period, where I say it's a go, expires here, but if a phase 1 study later shows, then it's still a no deal and I get my deposit back. As long as the phase 1 is done before closing. That make any sense? I better write that one down too. That is a good provision to put in any contract if you know it takes a while to get phase one studies done where you live. I'll release all of the due diligence except the phase one. When the study is done, if it's clear, I'll release it then. When builders, developers buy land, it's not uncommon at all for them to get 6, 12, 18 months worth of due diligence, which frankly I can't imagine landowners accepting, but some of them do. It's not uncommon for them to get 6, 12, 18 months to close because they're paying all cash for the land. You know, we can go in there and just do a lot better than that and just take all the land, just deal down, deal. All we got to do is agree to close. If you're a seller, do you want to take longer to close or shorter? Shorter. If you're a seller, do you want to have it hanging out in the air with due diligence longer or shorter? So if you think like the seller, I know they want to know if I'm real. So let me prove to them that I'm real in as short as possible time that I can do so without strangling myself on the due diligence process. And remember, all these contracts are totally negotiable. So in other words, let's say you were thinking to yourself, God, I'm not sure I can get that appraisal done in 30 days. That's really pushing it. Well, then simply put it in the contract. The due diligence period will end in 30 days unless the appraisal is not back. And then it'll be extended until this buyer can get the appraisal. Or to phase one or whatever. So in other words, you can extend the due diligence period without extending the due diligence period.
You keep saying phase one.
I'm getting to phase one. Phase one's an environmental study. That's where they poke holes in the ground and find out if you got gasoline poisoning or whatever. Okay? Here's what it amounts to. Figure out what bothers you and write a default mechanism into the agreement. What's going to keep you awake at night because you're afraid it won't get done in time. Just write it in there. Now look at it from a seller's point of view. Would a seller rather have a 60-day due diligence period or a 30-day due diligence period where all of the due diligence contingencies have been released except maybe the phase one report? See, at the end of the 30-day period, now they know, okay, this is a go unless my land has got environmental poisoning. That's the only thing that'll stop me from closing now. Put yourself in the seller's position. Normally, if I say we got 60 days due diligence, you know what that means? You know what that means to the sellers and the brokers and everybody involved? This guy is tying up my property for 60 days, and he can say that it's a no-go anytime he wants for any reason he decides to say so. I mean, that's standard conventional wisdom. That's why sellers and brokers will push for shorter due diligence periods. And who could blame them? When I'm a seller, I want shorter due diligence too. In fact, I prefer none. No, I prefer none, don't you? And everybody knows that deposit is not at risk. No matter how big the deposit is, it's not at risk till that due diligence period is released. And that's something you better not forget, especially you thinker brains. And I'm telling you this because of the way you react, and I see you react. You want all the answers before you'll even put up the deposit. That's not how it works. You go down this list and you do the best deal you can and you assume that everything's going to work out okay. Then you put up the deposit to show your serious intent. Then you get a contract on the property before you go spending a nickel on it. Until you get a contract, you got nothing. You got nothing. I'm not going to go look at a project till I have it under contract. Got better things to do. I'd have a couple, but I was right there in the area for some other reason. I'm not going to do that. I don't have time to do that. Earnest money deposits. Let's talk about earnest money deposits. Subject near and dear to your heart. And frankly, if you're, before we get off on that, what I prefer is 60 days due diligence and 60 days to close. Now, who thinks that's going to fly with every deal you make an offer on? Very common is 60-day due diligence and 30 days to close. That's common and normal in commercial property. Yes, sir.
Ron, does the appraiser for a commercial property need to have the purchase contract like they do in residential?
No.
It has nothing to do with
They don't need to have it in residential either. They just tell you they want it. Earnest money. This is the difference between you looking like a professional and you looking like a brand new seminar graduate. It's also the dividing line between the real players and the not so real players. The bad news is that you're going to have some serious earnest money deposits go out if you're going to be serious about buying high-priced properties. And if you're not realistic about this, you're going to instantly identify yourself as a non-player. And the way you can do that is by offering a ridiculously low earnest money deposit on a high-priced property where, frankly, you just look like a fool. You're making an offer on $1 million property, you know, a $500 deposit's probably not going to cut the mustard. You're making an offer on a $10 million property, a $5,000 deposit's not going to cut the mustard. I had a chart somewhere of the deposits that I put up on the properties that I bought or buying lately. I don't know what the heck happened to it. But let me just go from memory. I'll give you the purchase price and then I'll give you the deposit that we put up. Now, I will tell you that every time you make an offer on a property, you name the deposit you want to put up first within your letter of intent. And then sometimes the seller comes back and says, we want more. I've never had one come back and say, we'll take less yet. They come back and they say, we want more. Okay. Well, then you either got to agree to give them more or not agree to give them more. All right? Let's see. We're closing on one on the 22nd, Dale's deal in Michigan. We're paying $2.8 million for the property, and they have a $200,000 earnest money deposit. They got a $25,000 deposit to buy it for the contract, and they got $175,000 at release of due diligence. Man, they are deadly serious about it too. I mean, crystal clear language. We are not extending the closing 13 minutes for you. If you haven't closed at this time, you lose your deposit. Now, the reason is because they got jerked around previous. That's actually a pretty high deposit for a $2.8 million deal. Consequently, right down the street on a 283-acre deal with a $2 million purchase price, the deposit is $50,000, period. No more requested after due diligence released. We offered $25,000. Got some big dollars here, don't we? Don't we? Okay, so, it's becoming real apparent why many people who don't have this cash available are going to have to get help to play this game. In fact, what do you think Rock come to me for? So he don't have to write these deposit checks, so he don't have to raise the money. Go ahead and I'll come back.
What's your philosophy on checks versus promissory notes? Because we seem to be having good success with land on just using promissory notes.
You don't want my answer to that, Chairman. To me, offering a seller a promissory note for the deposit instantly tells them I don't have any money. To me, it's grade school mentality to try to do that. See, that's the difference between getting tagged as a real player or not. This, right here is the difference, guys. This is the front end difference. And then, of course, your ability to get it closed is obviously the big kahuna, but this is the difference. When you're making an LOI and you're offering a $25,000 deposit, you're no longer a time waster. Unless the rest of your offer is ridiculously stupid. $14 million property, get this one, $14 million property on Forney, 800 acres. The seller asked for $25,000, so we obliged. That's all he asked for. $14 million property, Frisco. Seller asked for $450,000 deposit. So we obliged. Because that's what it took to get the deal done. You see, what that was a doofus test. The seller put us to the doofus test. And immediately upon rendering that deposit, all of a sudden, the seas parted. And now the relationship became one of professional dealing with professional. And it's been that way ever since. It's that decision to put up that $450,000 deposit to buy that property when everybody else wouldn't. You see, 4 or 5 people came along and they said, we want a big deposit, scared them away. Was that deposit at risk? No. No. It went into Chicago title with an agreement that if I choose to back out in 60 days, you send it back to me. It wasn't at risk. I wasn't worried about it. Deposit down on the Florida deal, $50,000. They asked for 50. We gave them 50. They didn't ask for any more. They don't ask. I don't think they're asking for any more after due diligence is released. $3 million purchase. Well, I know what you would like. You'd like a formula.
No. There's one obviously. And from now on, once you get no clarity.
That makes no difference where you live. It makes more difference on the price, the offering price, how many dollars you're dealing in.
Well, it's not just Michigan.
Bigger dollars, bigger deposit. That's all. Now listen, just for the record, I always start with $25,000 deposit. I don't care if it's a $20 million deal. I'll start with $25,000 deposit. But I fully expect them to want more. Sometimes you get lucky and they don't. Yes, sir.
Ron, we offered 50 and they came back at 100.
On what?
You wrote a $100,000 check on that.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh my God. on that property in Florida. My God, that's right. We got $100,000 sitting down there, don't we? And that's a $3 million purchase price. Guys, do you see why we have a contract on this place?
Yeah.
Can any seller assume we're not real when here comes $100,000 by wire transfer to their account?
No.
Yes, sir.
Ron, I recently put a contract on a $460,000 piece of land, 6.7 acres.
Yes.
And the sellers wanted $25,000 during the due diligence period and
Yes.
$25,000 after the due diligence period was over. They wanted that to be held with their escrow agent, their attorney.
Yes.
And I changed the terms of the deal where during the due diligence period, the $25,000 would be held with my attorney and my escrow agent, and then after the due diligence period, it would be transferred to their escrow agent and their attorney.
I guess that works for you. Wouldn't work for me.
Yeah, and the reason is I don't know how it works in other states, but in Florida, both seller and the seller has to agree to release
In all
that
states.
escrow. Yeah.
So what? It sits right here in the contract. I just got a $75,000 deposit back on this apartment complex out here. Seller buyer had to sign a statement so the title company could release it. But,
I've been in
if it's clear in
situations
that
where the
contract,
seller doesn't agree to release the escrow.
if it's clear in the contract that you have 60 days to do your due diligence, they'll release it. If they don't, well, of course, you got to go to war. But hey, remember, there's also penalties in the contract, and you got to claim against them. They don't have any. Truth is, the title company and the brokers will do everything they can to try to get them to release it when they know darn well you had every right to do so. Can you get an irate seller? Sure, you can. A lot of things can happen, but this game of deposits is the difference. This is the maker or breaker, guys. I can't impress upon you strong enough. Now, if you don't have the money, what are you inclined to do? Go in here with a little old measly deposit and immediately identify yourself as someone who doesn't have the money and create doubt on the other side. You're better off tagging up with somebody who does have the money. Make sure the arrangements to release the deposit are clear in the contract, and it's always a good idea to use your escrow agent. To me, it's not only a good idea; it's kind of a given. Have I used escrow agents that I didn't hire? Yes, but the truth is, escrow agent's an escrow agent. However, would I put this money in the seller's attorney's account? Not in this lifetime. In fact, I'll tell you right now, if I have to put my money in the seller's attorney's account, and that's a maker or breaker, it's a breaker. I ain't doing it. shouldn't be worried about it because even he has to release it based on the terms of the contract. All right, any questions on that now? Any more? Huh? San Francisco? Oh, the hotel? That's an interesting point. $25,000 deposit, but there's more due next week with the release of due diligence. 50. There's 50 more due, I think, when the due diligence is released.
What's the value of that?
12 million. 12 million. It's all relative. See, there's no formula. What I do is start with what I think is the lowest, which is about 25, and let them come back and beat me up for more. Let's do a little deal pre-screening here, Cam. Maybe a little deal structuring. We're going to start right off the top here. Now, I'm going to tell you, just so you'll know, I'm not going to tell you where these properties are located. Sorry. I have experience with this one in the past, and unfortunately, I can't trust everybody not to go be slimy and go try to steal the deals. Human greed gets in the way. Okay, how many of you have projects that you'd like to discuss that aren't up here, that I don't have? Okay, it's like we got our work cut out for us, don't we? Well, let me start with this one, and frankly, I don't have much information on this except it comes from Ken Gwynn. Ken, where are you at? Where? All right, come on up here. Pretty interesting project. It's on raw land, 3,600 acres. You can sit right over there. 3,600 acres. That's a heap of land, isn't it? You know how big a property that is? I mean, that is a city. 3,600 acres. I mean, that's a lot of land. So what state is this in, Ken?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Okay. Is this it? All right. So Ken, tell me, you got 3,600 acres of land here. Let's talk about the numbers. The asking price is $14 million.
Correct.
That's $500 an acre.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
How much of this land is not on the side of a mountain?
All of it.
You're telling me it's all flat land?
Yeah, it's a coal mine.
It's a coal mine. How much of it is a coal mine?
The whole 3,600 acres.
Oh, can't all be a coal mine. What you mean is they're harvesting coal on this property, but it can't all be a coal mine.
It's the 3,600 acres are owned fee simple by the owner, and there's 2,491 additional leased acres. That the
in addition to the 3,600?
In addition to the 3,600 acres has 26 million tons of coal on it for surface mining, existing.
You are kidding me. So how much is the coal worth before Brandon gets back in here?
Yes, I didn't say anything to him while we talked.
Yeah. Well, he's got the coal sold.
Right now, well, there's also a contract to go along with this for 500,000 tons per year for the next 5 years at $55 a ton, which is now with coal prices going the way they are, it should be probably $65 to $70 a ton.
What does all this mean to us?
It means that you're looking at probably a sellout on this about $1.3 billion.
Oh, really?
You have the paperwork right behind it.
So what do we want to know? Why are they selling it at $14 million if that's the case? Why don't they just harvest the coal?
The guy that bought it, he bought it out of bankruptcy from a large corporation that had other entities and assets that went belly up, and this was a part of the sale.
Why on earth with that much coal on here would anybody file bankruptcy? You understand what I'm looking for, don't you?
Yes.
I'm looking for some hidden secrets here that we don't know about.
There are not any. Page 2 that you can look at right here, of course.
Yeah, well, all right. So really,
and he's retired.
Okay.
And just bought this.
Okay, he just bought it. How will he sell it to it? Will he owner finance it?
That's negotiable. He'd rather have his money.
Oh, who wouldn't? Besides, if he just bought it and he sells it, look at the tax.
He's owned it. He's owned it 4 years.
Okay. Well, he didn't just buy it then. All right. Okay. Well, the first thing we got to do is figure out if we can buy it without having to come up with $14 million, don't we?
Correct.
Now, the question is, if we bought this property, regardless of how we bought it, when can we start harvesting this coal? And what would have to take place to get that done?
90 days.
What has to take place to get it done?
In 90 days, it'll take for the equipment to be repaired. The drag lines are the size of city blocks. There's 2 of those that the repair cost is $1.7 million. That's part of the 14.
Oh, it's part of the 14?
Yeah, the 14 includes the equipment. It includes basically everything that it takes to start up that mine with all equipment. Purchase price of the land at $5.5 million.
Oh, the land's $5.5 million, and the rest of it's cost to get the coal mine running.
Exactly, including also the reclamation bonds that are required by the federal government now of $8 million that we can buy a bond for $4 million on those. I have that spelled out on your back page.
Okay. So now we got this issue of we got to try to raise, we got to try to get the seller their $5.5 million, and then we got to come up with actual cash to get the rest of the money to do this deal, right?
Correct.
You know what? And there's all kinds of ways to approach this, guys. Think about this. Is this a slam dunk, easy deal to get a hard money loan to buy it, and then do a private placement to raise a bunch of capital and make them partners on this thing and harvest the coal forever? I love this deal. Huh? Lease it from who? This guy owns it. He wants to sell it.
There's $4.9 million in here to buy new equipment with. And yes, the second alternative is to lease it rather than to purchase it.
On the other hand, should we have any trouble at all getting a $14+ million loan on this property, what do you think this property is worth as is? What do you think it appraised for? With all those resources on it.
I don't know.
Well, how would we find out? Would you like to be the appraiser trying to do this appraisal?
Because $500 an acre doesn't touch it. 30 million tons of coal there, and it's appraised. The MAI appraisals are all in place. It was appraised 3 years ago at 77 cents a ton in the ground, untouched. That's right at, and now.
How many tons are there?
30 million, that's 23,100,000.
Okay.
So now it's probably 30 million.
So the minerals are worth 23 million.
Just before they're touched, yes.
And then you got the land.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. So what else do we need to know here? What we need to do is get a contract, don't we, Ken?
Yes.
All right. All right. Well, class. I certainly hope you've enjoyed the boot camp. I'm sure glad Brandon wasn't here.
If Brandon's going to sell this and do it in China, we understand right now that they're getting $120 a ton for coal going
Brandon
to
would
China.
Absolutely be brought into this.
Can we be your investors?
Well, first thing we got to do, all right, she said, can we be the investors? You know the problem with that, though? Well, you know what? If the seller would give us time, we could raise the money as that's a security, you know. Okay. We could raise the money if the seller would give us time. I'd rather just go get a private loan on and get it done, and then we can play all those games. In fact, if you get that done, you don't really need to raise it.
Right. The way I've got it figured here, the loan amount of $14 million and a property value I've got here, it's $36 million based on the MAI appraisal. That's LTV 39%.
I just happen to know where you can get the money. Okay.
I want an airplane too.
Greedy sucker, aren't we?
I've got a boat.
Yeah, we haven't even got a contract yet, and he already wants an airplane. Much less got any money out of the deal.
Rick said all he wanted was a $40,000 SUV to ride around on it with.
We'll get him an ATV. All right. Well, for the sake of class, unless you and I, in fact, we got to get this thing. This is one that I would visit, but not without talking to the owner first.
Nice guy.
Good. So really what he wants you to do is bring him a contract for a $14 million purchase price all cash is what he wants, isn't it?
Correct.
So here's how we're going to approach it. We're going to say, listen, we'll bring you a contract for $14 million all cash, but just for the record, if we need you to, can you work with us on some short-term financing if necessary? And he'll probably say yes, won't he? What's the key point here, guys?
Short-term.
Yeah, but the key point is to do what? To get this thing under contract.
That's right.
That's the key point. And then we can go to work doing all the rest of this crap. Now, what do? We go up there and take a tape measure and walk the property, and what do we do? Here's what we want to know. Boom, boom, boom. Prove to me that these resources are on this property. Prove to me that what the value of this property is. Prove to me there's no governmental authorities that's going to stop me from harvesting this coal. And then we'll close.
And I already have all that.
Okay, well, so you say.
How'd you find the deal?
How'd you find the deal?
A friend?
No, word of mouth. Somebody told you about it.
Word of mouth, friends of mine in the mortgage business. Another entity came to them, tried to buy it from them, tried to get it financed with them. They weren't strong enough to do the deal, and obviously didn't go about it like we were talking about going at it. He told me about it, and I said, I want it, and so I got in touch.
What did he pay for it?
What did he pay for it at bankruptcy? Not that it matters, but I mean, $500,000. Oh, I'm dying. My God. I want to know how he found it.
Well, he's been in the coal business for 45 years, and it's a good old boy network down there, and there's some reasons why it hasn't been bought by the other guys in the coal business there.
Why?
Because they have non-competes on certain levels that they can't deal with.
Okay. Is this one of them areas where you got to go into and you hear deliverance in the back of your mind?
Yes.
So this is one of them parts of tenancies where sisters are marrying brothers and that type of thing.
Yes.
Okay, well, as long as the coal's coming out of the ground, I don't care.
As long as the money's green, I'm cool.
So how close to this property do you live?
I'm in Greensboro, so you know where I'm at.
Greensboro, North Carolina?
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm 5 hours, probably 5-6 hours.
All right. Is there anybody there that could operate this?
This is also all in place.
All in place.
It's all in place, ready to go.
Okay.
The maintenance on the equipment, it's been being maintained for these last 3 years as well. He's been putting money, and some of those equipments are being maintained. It's just sitting there. But the engineers, the management staff, all these people are sitting there ready to go if those are the people that you want. That's why it can start up in 90 days.
All right.
And be within 6 months, be doing 68,000 tons per month.
It'll be closing. I mean, it'll take 90 days to close it.
Correct.
Because, well, maybe not. Depends on how much due diligence is done. But I can assure you, I'm going to question everything they produce on it to make sure it's real, and get a kick-butt attorney working on it and make sure that get any trap. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And personally, I don't want to have a $14 million mortgage on a piece of worthless ground in Tennessee.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good question. Did you talk to him about earnest money deposit?
Not yet.
All right. Well, good.
I wanted to have something to talk to him about first. I don't do those things.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. Give him a round of applause. And, I'll get together and we'll kind of figure out, you know what? Your contract is to purchase the land and all of the equipment on it for 5.6, isn't it? The rest of it is just a matter of adding the equipment to the contract. As far as the seller and us is concerned, it's a purchase and sale agreement for $5.5 million, and this stuff goes with the deal.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
The rest of it is just money we got to raise to run the business.
That's correct.
All right, I got you. So we need to get to working on a contract. And after you find out what the least he'll take is. So I'm going to tell you right now, that's the next thing you need to do. Get him on the phone and say, look, I got a serious player who can raise the money to get this done. We need to know what's the absolute least you can take if we cash you out of this property. You'll have it done before the end of this break then, won't you? Yep. Which we're going to take right now.